Okay, is everyone here? Guess so. So welcome everyone to my talk, BURPing for Developers, Learning from Security Professionals. I hope you all had great lunch and that you collected enough air in your stomachs. I'm kidding, of course. But before I start, I want to get you, my audience, a little bit better. So who here had burgers? Please raise your hand. Okay, the queue was too long? Okay, that's unfortunate. And who had crabs then? Okay, more, so the queue was not as long, I think. Okay, and who here thinks that information security is not important? Okay, I don't see a single hand, that's good. That's good, because my talk is not about why security is important, so it's good that you think it's important. Then let me introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Felix. I had pizza and quinoa salad for lunch. And I work as a senior security engineer at About You, and I'm responsible for application security there in the company. I also like party parrots, like you can tell. Okay, now that we know each other, let's get to it. So, why do I want you to teach you to burp? So earlier this year, I was tasked with checking a new feature. Customers should be able to request deletion of their account in the iOS app. Maybe some of you dealt with something similar if you're developing an iOS app. And I was working remotely and on a Windows machine. So I didn't really have access to the iOS app. And I checked, and QA already had most scenarios covered. I just wanted to check, basically, if a user could request deletion for another user, which is typically referred to as IDOR, so insecure direct object reference, which is a vulnerability type. So I had a quick call with someone from QA. They showed me the feature, how it worked and everything, and it was fine. And I asked him if they could show me, show me the request the app was making to our APIs. And he was like, yeah, sure, let me just recompile the app with debug output and log every request. And I don't know about you, but have you ever compiled something while being on a call? It took 15 minutes. Not kidding. Just to see that request in the end. And it was all fine. The feature was secure and all, but like I was baffled that that a simple thing like logging a request takes 15 minutes. And then if you want something else and you need to recompile it again, fine. Without a call, maybe it's quicker, maybe it's just 1 or 2 minutes. But knowing the tools that I know, it just feels way too long. So maybe anyone can relate to this, that this is a problem. So I wanted to find out if this is a one-off or if there could be a pattern. So I made a poll in our company across the tech teams, and I asked which tools they use and know to send HTTP requests. And these are the responses. So most of them were using Postman, curl, their browser, or their favorite programming language, which was what I expected. And I also asked the question whether or not they wanted to repeat requests that they made in the browser. And 75% answered with yes, or that they're already doing it. And around 2/3 wanted to mock server responses and view that in the browser. Back here. All right. 2/3 wanted to mock server responses. So what if I could tell you that there is something that could do all that very easily and could also help you secure the application? And that brings me to the question, what is burp? So according to Wikipedia, Burping, also called belching and eructation, is the release of gas from the upper digestive tract, esophagus, and stomach of animals through the mouth. It's usually audible. I won't bring a burp sound now. I mean, it's recorded and all. But I guess you all know how it sounds. But of course, I'm kidding. I quoted the wrong article, apparently. So I'm talking about BURPsuit. According to their website, it's the class-leading vulnerability scanning, penetration testing, and web app security platform. It's the de facto standard when it comes to web application penetration testing. Who here knows Burp? There are quite a few hands. Nice, that's cool. So I guess a lot of security people in the audience. So yes, see the feature list that they have for manual penetration testing on their website. So it's a very, very powerful tool. Most of this is part of their paid feature set, but they also have a community edition, which is free to use. And what you can do with it is, for example, configure it as a proxy to log HTTP requests, which was a use case that I had in the story I told you, to repeat requests, to intercept requests and responses, to make sequential requests and even have like a little fuzzer running, and encoding and decoding really, really easy. So I guess the most important use case for developers and QA engineers is to repeat requests, play around with them, and to mock responses from the server. So you may ask now, do I really need another tool in my life? And that's a fair question. So how about I just show you, and you decide for yourself. So it's demo time. Let's see. Can you see that? Yes. Great. So this is the interface of the community edition of Burp. You'll see a dashboard that I never use. You can define a scope, which I already did, and a target that basically allows you to filter the requests that it is logging. So I chose code.talks as my target. And then you can click on proxy. And that is basically like the core that I'm using Burp for. So this proxy is pre-configured for their browser that is included. So you can just click open browser. It's actually that easy, right? And then if you open that, everything you do in there is basically sent to Burp and then sent to the application. You don't need to worry about anything. SSL works. Everything works. Even WebSockets, I think, are logged. So yeah, this makes it really, really easy to test. And then you also have the intercept tab and an HTTP history as soon as we do requests. And I will get to some other features once I use them. So let's surf a little bit on the backend side of the code.talks side, which is what speakers use to upload their data, basically. I will log in and I'll try to delete that from the history ASAP. So clear history. Yes, okay. All right, now I can reload. We can browse around a little, so you can see your own talk. You can see some details there. You can upload slides. You can set your profile picture in the profile here. So yeah, if you click on that, you can upload pictures. You can set a new password and so on, right? It's a very normal user interface, actually. So maybe let's do something here. I don't know. Let's try to set a Twitter thing here. And because I like to do that, let's try a payload that would, if you click it, send a JavaScript, like alert one, basically. That doesn't work because it's validating the URL. That's good. That's a good thing. But we can look at the request in a bit. So this is how the history looks like. So we can, let me move that window back up. This is where the details are. So this is the request that was sent to do this modify attendee. Call this modify attendee endpoint, which is a post request, which is why I knew that this was the request. And you can see, okay, Twitter profile, JavaScript alert 1. Sometimes you see when there's client validation that this is already encoded and then sent to the server, and often a way to get injections in, just as a useful FYI. Never trust the client. And now you can send this to the repeater. The repeater, in the repeater, you can simply, okay, you can simply send the request again, and it will have anything, everything before, like all the data that you sent before will be sent in this request. And maybe you will want to try different things here. So maybe you want to, I don't know, maybe it just checks for if a protocol is used. So maybe like this, right? We send again, and we can check the response here. And it's still invalid, so that's good. And you can play around with any kind of request here. So if we go back to the proxy, or actually back to the site, and we'll try to change the profile picture to an SVG, which is usually an easy way to get an XSS. So we try to reload this picture. This is also live on the code.talks website, by the way. I hope it doesn't trigger anything now, but it shouldn't. I checked it yesterday. And this is the request. So basically what it does is it uploads a picture, an SVG, that just contains SVG onload alert 1. And if it would trigger, we would see a pop-up saying alert 1, like saying just 1. And we see the response. That is fine, right? That there are just some URLs in the response. So it's accepting it just fine. But we could also, like, I don't know, maybe we uploaded in normal SVG, and then we could inject some payload there. Maybe there was some validation that we need to bypass, something like this. And this is super easy in the repeater, actually. All right. Then let me get to the next useful feature, which is the intercept. So if we look at the requests, we see an auth user request here. Let's look at this a little bit bigger. So it just gets like the user profile, basically. And I can show you the response here. And maybe you'll notice an interesting property there, which is admin. So what happens if we put it to 1 instead of 0? Would that make us an admin? And no kidding, this worked for some pages I looked at in the past. Never trust the client, right? So how do we do this now? So we go to the intercept tab. We click on the intercept button, and we just refresh. And this will now load forever because the requests are now on hold until we forward them here. So this gets the profile. This is the response from the server. Then here's our request made, get auth user, and some requests to the event. And this is the response that we also saw earlier. And here we can just go and change this to 1, and then forward. And then we're not intercepting anymore. And you see, I'm an admin now. At least it looks like it. And this is something that I do regularly when I do penetration tests. What I would do now, or what I can do as well, is I would just check if these links work. Because more often than not, they do work. And when I click on it, I can't access it. Like all of them are just redirecting me to management talks. And if I check in the history on these requests, so maybe management admin, here it's a 302 redirecting me to management talks. So that's good. That works as intended. It checks if I'm authenticated, and it redirects me to the page I'm supposed to look at. Okay, but there are two interesting buttons here, add talk and add user. And this add user actually opens like an interface here. Okay, so let's maybe enter test credentials. And I also checked this yesterday. Don't worry, it doesn't work. And we are trying to make us an admin. And we also want to send an email here. We submit. And of course, nothing happens because this site is coded securely. But we can look at least at the request, right? It's a post request to user, and it has the information in there that I just entered. And this is like a normal way of how I conduct penetration tests in web applications. Then there was something else that was interesting. Let's see if I can find it. Yes. So, and also if I reload this, I'm not an admin anymore, because that was just tricking the user interface. I think it was here. Yes, so I can show reviews for my talk. No reviews yet, I think that's a good thing. And if I look at the request here, I see talk 1327 comment section. So I guess my talk ID is 1327. And I get a response here saying that there are no comments and that the rating is not existing so far, right? And that brings me to another common vulnerability that I also already mentioned, which is IDOR, so insecure direct object reference. And that brings me to the feature of the intruder. So what we can do, or what Burp can do, is it can take one part of the request. So let's clear all this, because this is just pre-selected, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. And we just select what we want to change, and which in this case is the number, the ID of my talk. We click the little add button, so it recognizes this as a variable. And then we can go to payloads and select the payload type numbers. And then let's try maybe all talks from 1000 to 1500 with a step of 1. So this, when we click start attack now, yeah, and this is the hint that it's a demo version. In the pro version, this would be really, really quick. Here, it takes quite a while, right? But it sends the request, the same request, and just changes the ID in every request it does. And we can observe the status here, and I think we can also configure that we want to see something specific, so we can also pick something in the response that we want to be shown here. And maybe some of you noticed already, we can see the status code. And it is different for some. So there's a 44 for some IDs, and there's a 200 for some other IDs. So this hints us that that these are valid talk IDs, and these are not. And I really hope that the reviews are not supposed to be private, because otherwise I could see them now. but I guess that they are supposed to be public. And in case they're not, you didn't see anything, right? And now it sends all the requests in the background. I will stop that now. But that's how this feature works and how this is useful. So with this feature, I actually found, for example, on some insurance site, you could actually iterate documents, which is also a common thing, that your document, when you upload it, gets an ID, and you could access documents from other user accounts by just accessing the ID directly. And it's a common thing. I see that all the time in applications. Yeah. This is kind of an intro to BURP. I wonder if there's anything else that I should show you here. Maybe the decoder, which is also quite useful here in the repeater, maybe. So you can see some parameters here are encoded, right? You can see the percentage sign in there, which hints to URL encoding, and you can just select that, and here on the right there's the inspector tab, and that will automatically decode you any encoding. And you can play around. You can encode again, I think, as well here, and then paste that payload back. So yeah, it's a toolkit for making penetration testing like really easy and automating all the annoying stuff from you. And I think it's widely unknown in the world of developers and QA engineers, and I think you all could benefit from that. So whenever you have some free time while waiting for an app to compile, maybe you use BURP, give it a shot, and try these things that I just showed you. And maybe you find a bug in your program. And make your program more secure by that, because you all think that security is important, right? Okay, this ends the demo. Let me check if this works now. Okay. Good. So, who here will try BURP now? Please raise your hands. Wow, really? Okay, cool. And who here will really try BURP? Okay, nice. All right, thank you for your attention. This is the download link, the official one for the community edition, in case you want to download it and save the link on your phone or something.